Odysseus once ordered his own crew to tie him to the mast of his ship and told them, in advance, to ignore every single order he gave after that, no matter how much he begged. He didn't trust future him, so present him built a trap that future him couldn't talk his way out of. We tend to assume that resisting temptation is a test of willpower. That in the moment, if you're strong enough, disciplined enough, you'll simply hold the line. But Odysseus's own plan says something different. The real fix doesn't happen in the moment of temptation at all. It happens before, while you're still the version of yourself capable of thinking clearly about what's coming. Before Odysseus ever heard a single note of it, the sorceress Circe warned him exactly what lay ahead on his route home: the island of the Sirens. Their voices, she told him, promised each sailor something different: knowledge, glory, the exact words he most wanted to hear. And every man who had ever sailed close enough to listen had steered straight for the rocks, wrecked his ship, and died there. The shore, by every account, was littered with the bones of men who had each been certain they would be the exception. There was no negotiating with the song. There was no version of hearing it and simply choosing to sail on unaffected. The rule was absolute. Listen, and you will try to reach them. Reach them, and you will die on the rocks. Odysseus wanted something almost no one else in this story wanted: to hear the song and live to describe it. Not out of recklessness, out of the same curiosity that had carried him through a decade of war and wandering. So he built a plan that didn't depend on his willpower holding up in the moment, because he already knew it wouldn't. He ordered his crew to plug their own ears with wax so they would hear nothing at all. Then he had them bind him to the mast, tightly, deliberately, and gave them one final, unusual instruction. Whatever he said once the singing started, whatever he begged, however convincingly he ordered them to cut him free, they were to tie him tighter, not looser. He was, in effect, negotiating with a version of himself he hadn't met yet, and correctly assuming that version couldn't be trusted. As the ship drew near the island, the song began. And it worked exactly as Circe had described. Odysseus heard his own name inside it, heard promises of knowledge no living man possessed, heard something that felt, in that instant, more true and more urgent than anything he had ever wanted. He fought against the ropes. He screamed at his crew to release him. By every account of the moment, he meant it completely. This was not a man performing distress. This was a man utterly convinced, in real time, that untying him was the only reasonable thing left to do. His crew, ears sealed with wax, heard none of it. They only saw the signal agreed upon in advance, and they pulled the ropes tighter. The ship passed the rocks. The singing faded behind them into ordinary sea noise, and the man who, minutes earlier, had been begging with every fiber of his being to be freed, was suddenly, quietly, glad that no one on that ship had listened to him. So why does a plan like this need to be built in advance? Why can't you just decide in the moment to be strong enough? Here's what's actually happening. Knowing a temptation is coming gives you a brief window where you can still think clearly about it, because the temptation itself isn't in the room yet. That clear window quietly exposes the part of you that won't be able to resist once the temptation actually arrives. With that gap visible, you can build a rule now that doesn't depend on convincing your future self of anything. A rule your future self physically can't undo alone. And once that rule exists, you don't have to out-argue the temptation later, because the version of you who will be tempted was never given the authority to make the call. Here's the whole pattern in one line. Temptation builds urgency faster than it builds judgment. Odysseus and the Sirens are not a metaphor for this. They are the first version of it. Every plan that has ever worked by removing a future decision from your own hands, instead of trusting your future self to make the right call in the heat of the moment, is running the exact same pattern. You don't need a monster-haunted coastline to see this pattern. It shows up anywhere someone builds a rule before the moment they already know they can't be trusted to decide well. Someone deletes a trading app from their phone the night before an earnings call they know will tempt them into an emotional trade. Not because they lack discipline in general, but because they've learned exactly what that specific moment does to their judgment. Someone sets a fixed amount of every paycheck to move into savings automatically, before it ever lands in a checking account they could spend from. Because they know full well that money sitting in an accessible balance gets negotiated with, and money that's already gone doesn't. Two real examples make this easy to see, and both were, quite literally, named after this myth. In the late 1990s, the behavioral economists Richard Thaler and Shlomo Benazzi designed a retirement savings plan they called Save More Tomorrow. Instead of asking employees to cut their spending immediately, a request most people resist, the plan asked them to commit in advance to saving a slice of each future raise before that money ever became part of their regular paycheck. At the company where it was first tested, participants' savings rates climbed from roughly 3.5% of income to nearly 14% over about 3.5 years, and the large majority stayed enrolled the entire time. The design later became one of the most cited applications of behavioral economics in the world, and pieces of it are now standard in retirement plans across the United States. The second example carries an even more direct nod to the myth. Researchers designing a savings product for a bank in the Philippines gave their own published study a title borrowed straight from Homer, Tying Odysseus to the Mast. The product let customers voluntarily lock away money they couldn't withdraw until they had hit a savings goal they'd set for themselves. After 12 months, the customers who chose to tie their own hands this way had saved substantially more than those who kept full, unrestricted access to their funds the entire time. Here's the paradox underneath this. The best time to build a rule like this is precisely when it feels the least necessary, before you can feel the pull of the temptation at all, when staying disciplined seems almost effortless, and building a trap for your own future self feels like overkill. There is one thing that decides whether a plan like this holds for you. Whether you built the rule before the temptation arrived, or you're trying to build it during the temptation itself. By the time the song is already playing, the version of you doing the deciding is exactly the version this entire plan was designed not to trust. Odysseus made it past the rocks, not because he was stronger than the song in the moment it mattered most, but because he'd built a plan long before that never depended on his strength at all. This is Mnemarch. We look at the patterns behind human behavior, the same mistakes repeating, whether the costume is a myth, a market, or a memory. Subscribe if this is the kind of thing you think about. There's another one next week. The ship passed the rocks. The singing faded behind them into ordinary sea noise. And the man who, minutes earlier, had been begging with every fiber of his being to be freed, was suddenly, quietly, glad that no one on that ship had listened to him. So why does a plan like this need to be built in advance? Why can't you just decide in the moment to be strong enough? Here's what's actually happening. Knowing a temptation is coming gives you a brief window where you can still think clearly about it, because the temptation itself isn't in the room yet. That clear window quietly exposes the part of you that won't be able to resist once the temptation actually arrives. With that gap visible, you can build a rule now that doesn't depend on convincing your future self of anything. A rule your future self physically can't undo alone. And once that rule exists, you don't have to out-argue the temptation later, because the version of you who will be tempted was never given the authority to make the call. Here's the whole pattern in one line. Temptation builds urgency faster than it builds judgment. Odysseus and the Sirens are not a metaphor for this. They are the first version of it. Every plan that has ever worked by removing a future decision from your own hands, instead of trusting your future self to make the right call in the heat of the moment, is running the exact same pattern. You don't need a monster-haunted coastline to see this pattern. It shows up anywhere someone builds a rule before the moment they already know they can't be trusted to decide well.